With more and more churches utilizing Ableton Live and adding tracks to their worship sets, the ability to play with a click or a metronome is vital. So here are some tips on how musicians and specifically drummers can improve their ability to play with a click. Hey, it's Dave Dolphin at practicalworshipblog.com, sharing ideas, tips, and practical advice for the everyday worship leader. And I think drummers, more so than any other of the musicians on stage, really struggles with this concept, this idea of being able to play along with a click track. So over the next couple of minutes, I want to share why I think that is, some things if you're the drummer to be mindful of and look out for. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share how I personally set up my in-ear monitor mix when I'm playing drums that I think will be helpful. The reason why I think drummers have the harder time playing along to a click is that if no one has any experience playing along with a click, it's the drummer that's at a disadvantage because they generally are not playing an instrument that's used to listening to anyone else. If you're a guitar player, if you're a keyboard player, you're already used to listening to something else to set the tempo. You're generally listening to the drums. But if you're the drummer, you're not used to having anyone else set the tempo. You set the tempo, but now all of a sudden there's this click track banging in your ear and it's dictating the tempo and you're having to play along with it and you're not used to that. Now you might be saying, hey, I play along with CDs all the time. I'm used to listening to something else when I play. But that's not the same, and here's why. When you're in a live band and you're playing along with a click track, even if there is pre-recorded tracks coming off of Ableton Live, that band is still used to leaning on the drums more so than on the click track. So if you, as the drummer, get off the grid, if you get off that click a little bit, now you're going to bring the entire band with you, and now you have to bring not just yourself, but the entire band back onto the click. And that's a lot harder than playing along with a CD, where if you get off on the CD, that CD is going to keep on going because they're obviously not listening to you. It's pre-recorded. But if you have an entire band that's leaning on you and you bring them off the grid, now you got to bring them all back on, and that's a lot harder. And even really good drummers can be a little bit sloppy in their timing, where tempo is kind of this number you just kind of float around. And in a band context without a click, everyone just kind of follows the drums and it's not a real big deal. Nobody notices. If you don't believe me, ask any mobile DJ that's had to beat mix an AC/DC song. So tip number one is I would intentionally at home practice playing along with a click track. You can get a metronome app on your phone. There's a lot of them out there. I use one called Tempo, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. But just get yourself an app and start practicing playing to a metronome. Now, the thing you need to understand as a drummer, you probably are going to need to walk before you run. So in that practice time, dial back a little bit of the crazy in terms of what you do. Play a little bit simpler beats and a little bit simpler fills when you are intentionally practicing and getting used to playing with a click in your practice time. Tip number two is watch out for the problem areas. Now, when I work with drummers, there's three areas that seem to really trip them up. The first one being fills. Drummers are notorious for rushing their fills. So if you're playing that beat and you're locked into the groove and it all is good, when you go for that fill, spend a little bit of mental energy making sure you stay on that click, because going into that fill and you rush it, that's where you're going to get off. Number two is going to be those tom builds where you've got your snare and your floor tom and you're going dat, 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 dat. Thank you, Hillsong, for that. It might be for just a measure of a song. It might be for an entire pre-chorus or part of a bridge. If you have a section like that where you're just riding on the floor tom and the snare, spend a lot of mental energy locking in with that click, because it's really, really easy to want to rush that as you're growing and as you're playing louder in that tom build. The third one is going to be when you change sections of a song. If you go into a chorus that has a lot more energy than the verse you came out of, we instinctively are going to want to play that quicker. For some reason in our brains, louder, more energy means play faster, and we have to work against that. So when you go into a new section of a song, spend a little bit of mental energy in that first bar or so, making sure, am I on the click? Now, tip number three has to do with how I set up my in-ear monitor mix when I am playing the drums. What I will do is I will take the click track and I will pan it hard right over here. And then the rest of the instruments, I will actually pan about 10 o'clock over here towards the left, but not completely left. What that does is it gives the illusion that all the instruments are in both ears, but it carves out this little hole for the click track. So in those moments where I really need to study and I really need to engage with the click track, I can tell my brain to lean towards the right, but otherwise it gives this really full sound. Now, that said, when you are playing along with a click track and you can't hear it, that's actually a good thing. When you're locked on that grid, the click track actually is going to disappear. It's when you start slipping off of it that you're going to notice it a little bit more. But when it disappears, that's actually a good thing. The other thing I do with my in-ear monitor mix when I'm playing drums is that I will turn the vocals down as low as I possibly can stand it. A lot of drummers like to put their vocals really high in their mix because they're used to leaning on the vocals to know where they are in the song. But if there's ever an instrument, if there's ever a person on the stage that's going to be the most susceptible to following you if you slide off that click, it's going to be the singer. So what happens is you get off that click, that singer is going to follow you, and now there's this spiral and you're just falling down this staircase. So instead, you need to train yourself to not lean on the vocals as much as you lean on the click track. So try turning down those vocals as much as you can stand. I still like to know where I am in the song vocally, but as much as I can, I try to turn them down so I'm listening to the band and I'm listening to the click. Well, here at Practical Worship, we love sharing ideas and tips and practical advice for the everyday worship leader with videos just like this one. So if this was helpful, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. We upload new videos every single week on Tuesday, and if you're subscribed, you'll be notified when those come online. Also, if this was beneficial to you, you might know someone else that could benefit from this video. Consider sharing the link on Facebook and Twitter and places like that. And for more great practical advice, check out practicalworshipblog.com.